So, today I wanted to talk about Detroit 2, the album that Big Sean just recently dropped, like not too long ago, and I really wanted to cover it. I wasn't expecting to enjoy the album that much because it was rap, and I am pretty big on rap, but like a rap album is not something that I really cover a lot, but I actually might also do. Please excuse me for being antisocial. But let's just get into this album. I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of points to take from this album, like the really good storytelling, the lessons that's being explained, just the way the album is just personalized around Big Sean, which definitely plays more into his artistry as an artist, that it was so personal, and there's just a lot of just self-growth and self-worth, which seems to be the theme of 2020. So many artists are like doing this theme, like Folklore and Rare, and there's just a lot of just self-reflecting that's going on. I don't know if it's just because of quarantine, but that's just happening a lot in artists' music, just in general. But there's definitely I just said very personal, and lyrical. But it's Big Sean. That's nothing like, oh, it's lyrical. Like, we all knew it was going to be lyrical. And in Detroit 2, he really does like a deep dive into his life, and overall, what he basically just talks about, just forgetting about the destination, paying more attention to like the journey and what he's learned on his way to the top, and how he's viewed things in the past and how he's doing things now. And just going through this album, it felt like I was watching a movie. Like, I really sat there and I definitely listened. Like, if you plan on listening to this album, if you haven't listened to it yet, I definitely recommend you kind of just sit there and definitely listen and definitely take it all in. Like, don't be occupied by doing anything. Definitely, sit there and take in like what he's talking about, because I feel like if you're doing anything else, if your mind is occupied just a little bit, you're going to definitely like miss a lot of what he's covering in this album. And moving on to the features of this album, the features on this album are actually, they're all very like wholesome. Well, Big Sean definitely isn't an artist that really cares too much about record sales, so all the features here are definitely very meaningful. Like, even the first feature of the album, which is Nipsey Hussle. And at the end of the album, he talks to, there's like it plays an interview of Nipsey Hussle, and the interviewer asks, like, is there any artists that you want to work with? And he starts naming like a bunch of Detroit artists, and he names like Big Sean like towards the end, talking about how he wants to work with him, and because Nipsey's now unfortunately he's dead, but it was really wholesome how he's like on Big Sean's album, and the album's called Deep Reverence. And he was, Nipsey, like, in the interview, he also, like, expressed his love for, like, Detroit and the Detroit scene and the Detroit rappers. And, like, the album's called Detroit 2. So it all just kind of came together, and it all just very wholesome. And it was just really nice. And then, you have Wolves of Post Malone. I'm also not a big fan of Post Malone. But, it was a decent song. But Body Language with Janae Eiko and Ty Dolla $ign. This is definitely, one of my favorite songs off of the album, which is Body Language. And Janae Eiko, she just outdid herself with this chorus. And Ty Dolla $ign, he did his thing as well. And it was just really good. And those two are just really good examples of the features on this album. There's also like a whole like cipher towards the end of the album as well. But I just want to generally just talk about the features. The features are definitely nothing crazy or anything that like really stood out. I think that everyone really played it safe with their features. Nothing too crazy. Like, oh my god, like this person right here. But everything kind of vibed very well. It was a vibe. That's what I'll say. But I did also want to get into like what my favorite tracks off of this album were, and kind of what I got from the album, then kind of sum up everything, and then cap it all off. But my favorite songs from this album was definitely ZTFO, Full Circle, Body Language, and I really enjoyed I think I already said Full Circle. I enjoyed Respected as well, simply because those few songs, and Harder Than My Demons, because all those songs sum up what the album is gearing towards. Like Respected talks about like self-worth, and ZTFO talks about self-worth and self-love and just finding your true self. Because in this album, Big Sean, he definitely finds himself like spiritually. Like, he talks about like meditating daily, and kind of like separating himself from energies that don't intertwine with his. And it was really insightful to kind of hear as well. It's just the same overall theme this year. Like, I've been hearing so much about this, especially like in Chilumbo. Janae Eiko's album talks about like like peace and inner mind and meditating, and just all this self-worth and all this self-healing as well. Like, it's definitely the theme of this year, and it's definitely like seeing like 80% of this album, definitely. But overall, I do like this album. I think it has a couple of really good songs in there. It's definitely a album that I do see myself revisiting every here and then, just because just listening to everything in order, and the stories that are throughout the album, like by Stevie Wonder and Erykah Badu and Dave Chappelle, they all go into really like great detail about Detroit and their experiences with Detroit, and they shout out Big Sean because Big Sean's obviously from Detroit, and the album's called Detroit 2. So it's just very wholesome. It definitely gets you into the vibe of where Big Sean came from, and then he gets into like his personal experience with Detroit, and outside you get Big Sean's inside opinion because he was raised there, and his family's there, and him coming out of his city and repping his city, and then you hear Stevie Wonder and Erykah Badu and Dave Chappelle, they're kind of like the outside perspective of it. So it's like you get the ins and the outs, and it's really wholesome. And it's kind of ironic because there's a song on this album called Full Circle, and he talks about everything coming full circle. And I feel like this album definitely came full circle as well with the message of Detroit 2, and just this being his second time around the pond, because Detroit was, as I said earlier in this video, that Detroit 2 was his first. Was like one of his first mixtapes that he treated as an album. So him coming back around the pond, and kind of expressing like what he learned and what he's been through and where he is now. So it's just it all comes full circle, just like he said, and it's just really nice. But anyways, I do overall love this album. It has an amazing message, and it helps put life to a positive perspective. I definitely grew a lot from listening to this album. I mean, I didn't grow a lot listening to this album, but a lot of the stuff that Big Sean was saying was yeah, I get that point, I understand that point. It was just, I like how it was personalized as well by his life, and just looking back and seeing how much he's grown over the years. Just a very wholesome feeling. But I will say, while listening to this album, it felt more like I was listening to a podcast with background music versus an actual album. It just felt like it was just lacking musically. I feel like coming away from this album, with the exception of a couple of songs like ZTFO and Body Language, I just feel like there was nothing catchy that caught my ear. It was nothing aesthetically pleasing to my ear. Versus, it felt like it was stimulating my mind, but music-wise, it's supposed to be an album. It's music. I feel like just from my personal taste, it just wasn't hitting on all cylinders in that sense. But everything he was saying was full of substance. I like that there was a direction and an agenda behind all of this. And there's just a purpose behind, every, word he was saying in every song. Well, it wasn't all to make a full picture. And it wasn't in chronological order. But it definitely helps as far as, going back to his theme. And, the agenda being, the first Detroit, now it's the Detroit 2. But I just wish that there was, I don't know, I just wish that there was something that just caught my ear and made me kind of nod my head a little bit, or, I don't know, which is lacking in that sense. But that's just an overall take that I had on the album. Besides that, there are songs that knock those, that touch on those cylinders. ZTFO had a really nice beat. It had this really nice catchy hook to it. And Full Circle, it didn't have a catchy hook to it, but I do like the sound of the song itself, and the features definitely help bring everything together. Then you have Body Language, which is a bop. It's catchy. It sounds amazing. The verses are amazing. There's 2 features, so you don't really get tired of Big Sean's voice. So that's a bop. I think definitely top 2 best songs on this album next to ZTFO. Definitely enjoy that song. But for its amazing storytelling and the lessons that are being explained, and just the substance and the lyrics, and just a very personal perspective that you definitely get to see behind the lenses of the artist Big Sean and the rapper Big Sean, and where he's come from and where he is now, and just the overall wholesome feel that you get from this album with the stories with Stevie Wonder, Erykah Badu, and Dave Chappelle. I would definitely give this album an 8.5. Definitely recommend this album. Again, I definitely recommend you get some headphones, just sit down, definitely get into what he's talking about. Just open your mind to his experience in his life and whatever. If you do this if you just do this while just doing anything that's taking away your attention, you're definitely gonna miss out on everything this album has to offer. So yeah, that was my video. Please like, subscribe for more music discussions and music reviews and whatnot. And I am out. That's it.